Welcome back to Daily DeFi. Today's June 14th of 2021. Today we'll be talking about Fantom, FTM, Thorchain, Rune, and Aave, three altcoins in the decentralized finance space that are actually doing quite well on the 24-hour time frame with this kind of bump up a little bit yesterday. Typically just on weekends we see the market move sideways just like we have over the past couple of weeks, honestly, with Bitcoin after this retracement. And today the other article we will be talking about is Bitcoin with Elon Musk. So he's kind of gone back and forth on this with the green energy thing. Now he's back on the train. He's saying, okay, I've figured these things out. I've done my own research and I understand that we can actually use this profitably, right? Like we can use this, have sustainable energy. That's the whole thing with Tesla and his company is like lowering carbon emissions and all these different things. So very, very important to have him on board, along with Tanzanian. The actual president of Tanzania is urging the central bank to prepare for cryptocurrency. So this is massive, especially with you see the trend of more emerging market countries like El Salvador adopting it as legal tender. This trend is only going to increase, right? It's not like they're going to pull this back, right? So this is something where more and more countries are going to see, okay, El Salvador had all these major benefits just by doing this, and they didn't even announce it as like, they didn't say we're going to put it on our balance sheet or anything like this. They literally just said legal tender, which obviously is a step in the right direction. So as always, we start things off with DeFi Pulse and juicy NFTs. Let's hop right over. Total value locked in decentralized finance sits at $60.14 billion. Like I said, it's really just been a kind of a sideways moving price action just as far as total value locked in decentralized finance. Aave dominance sits at 15.38%. DeFi Pulse Index up about 11% on the daily to 320.72. So you can see again, Aave just taking that number one spot just way by charge. They're up about around $5 billion more than the second, right? So it's pretty impressive, honestly, especially since they were in that number 3 spot for a long time. Moving on to juicy NFTs, the volume has fallen a little bit. Last week we were seeing around $2 million in daily volume, but now we're seeing around just $100,000, right? So down about 33%. CryptoPunks has a majority of that volume, right? So right at $41 million. Interesting to see. Always interesting to kind of track that market, the non-fungible token market, because long term, this volume is going to be ridiculous. So seeing it at these levels, just like you can have an index on the top decentralized finance tokens and not bet on one individual project. If you just want to kind of like a mutual fund, right, of all DeFi projects, that's what DeFi Pulse is. But with NFTs, we don't really have this, right? So we have the Beeple 20 index, which I've talked about in the past, but that's specifically for Beeple's art. I'd be interested in seeing something where it's like covering a lot of the top NFTs. So whether it's like CryptoPunks, ENS, Sandbox Lands, Gods Unchained, Beeple, all these different things, you combine them together and you put them in kind of an index. So if anyone knows a project like that, let me know in the comments. Okay, so moving on to Decrypt. This first article, let's pop over here. So again, Bitcoin has this rise. Obviously, it's not specifically due to this, but this has a bit of a, obviously, like sentimental impact, right, on it. When Elon, who's kind of, people call it like the Elon dip is what we kind of experience, but really it's a multitude of factors, right? So we were a bit overbought at that price. We needed to retrace back down to these levels, at least like kind of this 40 to 50% correction. We saw multiple of these in the last bull run. If this article loads, I don't know exactly what's going on here, but we saw multiple of these in the last bull run. So you always have to keep that in mind. And since Elon talked about this, and even if it doesn't load, it's all good. But he said Tesla will accept Bitcoin once again once miners use 50% clean energy, which, we're pretty dang close to that, right? So once these things happen, at least he has like a parameter, right? So at least he says once they accomplish this, which I think would be relatively easy to do. A lot of these miners are fairly adaptable. You look at what's going on in Iceland, you look at what's going on in a lot of these rigs. It's kind of hard to gauge, okay, how can you really say all of these are using 50% clean energy? Because it's completely decentralized, right? So it's not like it's not like you're going to Joe Biden and saying, hey, Joe, I'll invest back in the United States when you switch to clean energy, right? Like you can talk to one central authority, but with Bitcoin, it's completely decentralized. So this is kind of a strange topic with Elon, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. There's only so much effect that one person should really have on the market, even if this person's the wealthiest man in the world. Excuse me. Even this person's the most wealthiest man in the world. It really doesn't matter, right? Like the whole point of the ecosystem is it doesn't care. Bitcoin doesn't care whether Elon accepts it or not. Bitcoin doesn't care whether El Salvador accepts it as legal tender. The main thing is Bitcoin every 10 minutes, new block, new block, new block. And there's always mining rewards. There's always people using the network. All these miners are getting the block rewards. It's a great system, right? And the whole point is it's proving its use case in this, right? So that's why I think it's kind of interesting. We'll see what happens with Mr. Elon. So moving on to this article from Cointelegraph, Tanzanian president urges central bank to prepare for crypto. So Tanzania's president wants the country's central bank to begin exploring Bitcoin and digital assets. Tanzania appears to be the largest emerging economy poised to embrace Bitcoin and crypto assets. So I'm very bullish on Africa in general, and especially Tanzania. Tanzania, Nigeria, Rwanda are the ones that I'm really, really interested in as far as countries in Africa. And those, I would say, you could say they're in between kind of frontier markets and emerging markets, right, in Africa. So on June 14th, Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan urged the country's central bank to begin exploring crypto assets. Hassan emphasized the increased impact of digital assets on global finance, stating, "We have witnessed the emergence of a new journey through the internet." So I'm so glad he sees this insight. I'm assuming some people have reached out to him in the crypto space and kind of explained these things, right? Like I know Brock Pierce, who's involved in who's actually trying to run for president, and it was involved in Tether, was involved in EOS, which projects that I'm not the biggest fan of, but so, I mean, this guy was in Bitcoin very, very early, in these projects very, very early. He's one of the top guys at the Bitcoin Foundation and doing a philanthropy in Puerto Rico, which is pretty cool. But, he met with some of these other presidents and some of these economic ministers of other countries to explain these things. And I think he does a great job of breaking it down fundamentally of what these things are doing. So someone who's 50, 60 years old, who's in office, maybe a politician, can understand this, right, and understand the benefit, because it truly does benefit. Like I said, crypto or blockchain, whatever you're talking about, it doesn't care who accepts it or not. It's just a tool in the tool belt, right? And it's a tool that's obviously when you compare it in a vacuum, it's incredible. But when you contrast it with our current financial tools, it blows it out of the water, right? So this is the beauty of it, and it really brings back power to the citizens. I think that's the main thing, especially in Africa and emerging markets, is you adopt these things and it blows up the economy, and in a good way, right? I'm not saying it blows it up in a bad way, but I think it's very, very interesting to watch. So my call to the central bank is that you should start working on that development. The central bank should be ready for changes and not be caught unprepared. I completely agree. Let's move on to here. So I was looking at this. This is a project that is relatively new, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. Just let me know in the comments if you want to see a deep dive video on insured DeFi. $81 million market cap. It just blew up on that 24-hour time frame, and I was scrolling through those top decentralized finance tokens. I was like, wow. I'm not sure, aka the ticker symbol of this project, about this. But I will definitely do some more research. Always, as I talk about, guys, do your own research. Link for that video down below in the description, in the must-watch video section. So moving on, Aave, man, Aave is ridiculous. Like I said, they've really kind of gained that spot in the in that dominance with total value locked in decentralized finance. $311 currently, up about 13% on the daily, right around approaching a $4 billion market cap. So, we've seen this nice little retracement down. We're currently at these levels. You have 314. So you have close to a 2x, if you were to, if you do think it'll return to those highs. So potentially an interesting opportunity there. But, that's with the top down. That's a safe bet, right? But then you look at something like Fantom or Thorchain or some of these lower market cap projects, and we'll show you here. But you see the retracement back to these highs. So this retracement down to $8 versus it was up at I guess this is around a 2x as well, but you get the point. Like some of these lower market cap projects, I mean, just to return to these highs, it's like a 5 or 6x. I talked about some of those projects yesterday in Daily DeFi, so go check that out. But Thorchain, I mean, still pretty high market cap, right? Like $1.7 billion in market cap, around 96,000 people watch this, up about 14% on the daily at $8. Volumes around 100 million, so pretty solid overall. I mean, Thorchain, what they're doing is incredible with them swapping it in between chains. There's a great interview with one of the guys that helped build Thorchain with Anthony Pompliano. It's a podcast. I highly recommend you go check that out because it breaks down really the use case of Thorchain. So moving on to Fantom, FTM, and then we'll wrap things up, all right? So ticker symbol FTM on about 114,000 watch lists. Market cap, this is the only one talking about today that's below $1 billion, but right around $700 million in market cap, 27 cents, up about 16% on the daily. Volumes around about half of what Thorchain is, so that's up about 32%, which is always good to see. The volume to me is sometimes even more important if you're trading these assets, right? Like you need it to have high volume. If there's $1,000 in volume, I think Euler, I made a video on yesterday, and the volume is very, very small, right? So that's something that I wouldn't be trading. I would be potentially investing in a small amounts, averaging in and building a long-term position if you believe in what it's doing fundamentally. Now, if you haven't done your own research, don't do that, right? You need to do your own research in all these projects. You need to look at it from a technical point of view. What are they doing fundamentally? What's kind of the on-chain metrics, right? What are the tokenomics? Again, all those things, like I said, talked about in the video down below in the description. So volume is, 53 million. This is a good example. So this one's retraced quite far, right? It was at 90 cents. Now we're back down to around 28 cents. So around a 3x back to those highs. Not bad, right? Not a bad play. I think Fantom's doing incredible things fundamentally. If you want to see a deep dive video in any of these projects, I've talked about Aave and Thorchain in depth in the past. I've done a tutorial on how to stake Thorchain Rune. But yeah, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, button all, invest global, and until next time.